Okay, so this week I decided to do a few projects that I've been wanting to tackle for this corner of my shop. I've been dying to tear down these cabinets. I'm not a fan of cabinets because I think they are notorious for things just getting pushed to the back and forgotten about. I have a large variety of things in here that I didn't even remember because most of the items are out of sight. For example, I found this box, and inside is all my throwing knives I've been looking for. And of course, I couldn't resist throwing a few. Okay, back to the organizing. So I tore down these cabinets and chunked them outside to be added to the burn pile. Now, the first thing I wanted to build was a shelf to hold all my gallon paint cans. I built this shelf very close to the ceiling because I like to utilize the top portion of my walls for items that I don't regularly use. So this means that I will need a step stool to get to these, but that's fine because 90% of the year I don't use these gallon paint cans. So I first put in two 2x4 pieces with lag bolts that go into the studs. Then I used some other 2x4 material to create the deck of the shelf. And I made this only as deep as one paint can. Working by myself is sometimes pretty difficult. Like this turned out to be kind of heavy and somewhat awkward. So I used a scrap piece of wood that is cut to the exact height that I needed so that I would be able to set one end in place while I moved to the other end and clamped it. Then I was able to go through and actually start attaching it. I attached it to each stud that I had. I believe I had 6 along this wall. So I would first pre-drill just to make it a little easier and then come back with a 3-inch screw. With that in place, I came back with this piece of 2x4 using pocket holes to attach it to the brace and then screws to attach to the shelf. My husband is now calling this the bomb-proof shelf. I guess I did overbuild it. A little. The next thing I wanted to build was some simpler shelves for this corner, just to store some of the very few things that I have laying around. I'm making these from 3/4 inch plywood, and really, I sometimes let the scraps that I have dictate the measurements of things I need. So I cut the 2 pieces to length, and then also used my miter saw to cut some triangles out that will be the supports. I used pocket holes to attach the supports to the shelf as well as to the wall. It's not bomb-proof, but it's definitely going to work. Before making a second shelf, I needed to move my Kempton plate, and I get a lot of questions on this from my German viewers. My grandfather used to live in Kempton and had this hanging in his shop for most of his life, so whenever he passed, I just simply moved it to mine. Then after moving that one, I decided to move all my signs here. I repeated the steps to make a second shelf, and I must say, it was kind of hard for me to find items to fill these up. I'm pretty good about tossing things out that I don't use regularly. The last thing I wanted to do was hang my Triton lumber rack. This is a great lumber rack that you can pull out of the box, do very little assembly, and then throw it on the wall and have a lumber rack done. Each one of these arms is rated at 50 kilograms, or 110 pounds. But my only problem was the rack was going to take up the majority of my wall, which I wasn't willing to give up. Okay, so I've been looking at my wall, and I really only want to utilize this at the top of that wall because I had plans for the lower portion. So in order to make this work, I'm going to have to chop it up. Triton, don't kick me off your team because I'm chopping up your products. This really should be the only product of yours that I ever chop up, but don't hold me to that. I used cutting fluid and reciprocating saw to cut each piece into 3 sections. This will give me 6 sections to make 2 shelves with 3 supports. Now, since I cut my unit up, it made it to where only one mounting location was in each section. And after I tested one section on the wall, I didn't feel like that was going to be enough. So I took each section to my drill press and drilled 2 new holes. This meant I also needed to make a few more spacers, so I cut a channel in a long piece of scrap and then cut that into individual pieces. Next, I mounted each section into a stud using 3.5-inch screws. and that feels a lot better. It's my plan to use the far right rack for 8-foot joint pieces, and then this one for 4 and 6-inch scraps. And I'm also going to be adding a platform to both of these tiers the next time I have some scrap 3/4 inch wood, so that I won't have so much wasted space.
Cool. Now, of course, shop is always a work in progress, and I have tons of other projects to do in order to improve the function of my shop. But all of these small things is a step in the right direction. So thanks for hanging out with me. I know that this isn't really a tutorial, but I just film anything that I happen to be working on. So I will see you the next time I'm building something.